All right, so this is chapter 4, and it's a study of tissues. We'll be studying the tissues. I will intend to break this into 2 different lectures. So we do a part today, then we continue next week. Tissues from previous times that we've studied, you know that, you remember when we talk about level of organization, what was the first one? Level of organization. You are correct, say it out. Atoms, molecules, cells, then tissues, right? Good. So tissues are aggregate of cells, right, that have come together to perform specific functions. They are specialized. And so examples of tissues, there are 4 types of tissues. And I use the word semen for them. Now, when you hear semen, you think of semen, S-E-M-E, right? E-N, right? But now, think of it as semen. And the semen means that this is connective tissues. So this is connective. This is muscle. This is epithelial. And this is nervous. I'll try to go straight to points today. And I'll try to do one again. Epithelial and nervous. Now, so study of these tissues, which is what we've been doing in the lab, is what we call histology. And on the other hand, study of cells is what we call cytology. Okay? If you have questions at any time, please stop me and ask. I intend to do this for 1 hour, and if I do a perfect job, I feel fulfilled, I'll ask you to leave. I don't want to overload you today. All right? So if you have questions, stop me and ask. All right, now, pathology is the study of tissues that is associated with disease. When you're trying to look at the malfunctions that happen to tissues, that's what we say pathology. Sometimes we talk about histopathology, studying of the deviations, the malfunctions that happen to tissues. Then biopsy, when you do biopsy, is the study of tissue samples from a patient to make medical diagnosis. So when sometimes when people have disease, we take the tissue, analyze the tissue, that is biopsy, to know what the problem is actually. So sometimes they remove a mass, they don't just conclude that it's fibroid, they don't just conclude that it's this. They have to analyze the tissue and see if it is cancerous, if it is something malignant, or if it is benign. Malignant means that it is cancerous, it will keep growing, or it may have metastasized or spread to another area. But if it is benign, it means it is only localized to a particular location, and so removing it is taking care of it. But if it is malignant, even when they have removed it, it could have spread to other parts. And so in few years or in few months, the person will come back with more disease or in a more sick state because they didn't take care of it, right? So most of it doesn't happen here really, but most of the time it happens in under or developing countries. People go to the hospital, they say they notice they have mass in their stomach. They just conclude it's fibroid or something. They remove the mass. They ask them to come back for the result of by the time they analyze, do a biopsy, but they won't return. So in a few months, they're going to come back. The tissue will have spread around, and that means it was cancerous. It was malignant. So it will have spread around. Cancer could have been maybe stage 3 already. It will be too late to treat again. So autopsy is, everybody should know autopsy, right? What is autopsy?
When you view a dead body. All
right. So autopsy is when you study a tissue from a dead body to know what was the cause of the disease, of the death. Now, tissues are made up of cells, right? So if tissues are made up of cells, there is a way that cells connect together to form tissues, right? All right, so the things that connect cells together to form tissues, we call them cell junctions. All right, now, those cell junctions, there are 3 of them. We have the tight junction, we have the gap junction, and the desmosomes. Now, don't fret. Think about it. Tight junction, what does it mean? It's tight. Now, it's tight. That means it's closely together. It may not have space for water or ions to pass through because it's so tight. So think about it that way.
What is an example of a tight junction?
I'm getting there.
Oh.
Tight junction, all these junctions we mentioned, they are just ways, they are connections between cells. So it's not like an example. They are ways that cells connect together. Does that make sense? We will only be talking about locations where they exist. What are tissues? Cells that come together to perform specific functions. Now we are looking at it, what connects those cells together. First, one of them that connect those cells together are tight. We call them tight junctions that connect different cells together to form tissues. Now, we have one that is tight junction. Do you understand what I'm saying, Matt? What I'm saying is simply this. What are tissues? Aggregate of cells that come together to perform some functions. When they come together, what holds them to be together? It's
Okay.
like glue.
Okay.
So one of them is called tight junction
Okay.
that connects the cells together. Usually they are proteins. They connect the cells together. So when 2 cells are connected by those, I will show you more about it. When they are connected and they are so tight that they don't allow substance to pass through them, that is an example of tight junction. Gap, from the word gap, it means they are connected, but there's still a little gap, right? Meaning that something can move in between them, right? So water molecules, ions can move in between them because it's a connection of cells, but there is a gap between the connection, between the cells. Does that make sense? Now, let's go. Now, so tight junction, we call it like a watertight seal. So think about that, a watertight seal, in a way that that is what you have here. That's what you have here. It's tight junction. Is a junction. It looks like everything is tightened up. 2 cells. These are 2 cells. This is one cell. This is the other cell. But they are tightened together. Now look at it. There is a gap between them, right? Between the 2 cells. Do you get what I'm saying? So look at it. This is a cell. This is another cell. These are the tight junctions, right? Now, in between the cell, look like there's space in between the cell, right? But can anything go out of this space to another cell? No. So there could be there could be movement in between it, but nothing can go out of the cell. Does that make sense? So this is a tight junction. Does that make sense now? Now, this type of, so we call them watertight seal. They consist of protein that attach plasma membrane of adjacent cells, and they allow for formation of a tight seal between the cells. So it's a tight seal connection between 2 cells. Don't forget, all we are looking at now, if you break it down, tissues are cells that come together. What connects the cells together? We are looking at the first one. The first one is tight junction, right? Now, and we are saying that this kind of tight junction is a water seal. You know what we mean by seal, right? If you say you want to seal up a cup, right? If you very good, you seal something of like your what do you call these? Ziploc, right? You seal it up. When you put something in there, you seal it up. Nothing can come out of it, right? It's a water seal. Now that's a kind of tight junction that holds some cells together. Now, it allows for formation of tight seal between them. Now, what does it do? It imbides the movement of material between cells. So it will impede the movement of material. Now, you see such in the cell that line the stomach, and think about it. You see such in the cells that line the intestine and urinary bladder. And think about it. In your urinary bladder, do you want to, except for cases when there is incontinence, you know, when there's urine in the urinary bladder, does it leak out by itself? Except for cases of incontinence. Good. So that's the kind of tissues that are there.
What do you mean incontinence?
Incontinence is
like when you get old and you sneeze.
Incontinence happens. Very good. That happens. That also happens with women after pregnancy, or even during pregnancy. It happens with women after pregnancy. That's when the rectal muscles feel a little weak. Okay. So, but you get the idea, right? So urinary bladder have that kind of tight junction. That's why on a normal ground, you don't just see urine leak out, because it has a tight junction that does not allow movement of materials to move between different cells. All right, so you just get familiar with this diagram. There are also some descriptions here. Look at it more, okay? Can I continue? Do you have a little view of what it looks like now? Thank you. And you can see where they are located now, right? Good. So those are the things you must be very careful about on the exam. All right. Now, desmosome, we call them spot welts. Now, they involve cell adhesion molecules. Okay, I'll come back to this. Let me look at gap junction, okay? Not a problem. I want to look at it like tight junction, gap junction, then I'll come to desmosome. Now, gap junction, simply from the way I explained to you, it's a connection, but there's a gap that allows movement of fluid. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Good. Now, it's also made up of proteins, but the proteins, 6 of these proteins, you want to take note of that. 6 of these proteins called connexin, they form what we call tunnels, and the tunnel we call it connexon. So 6 connexins form connexons. Does that make sense? Good. 6 of these protein form this connexon, which is a tunnel. Now, this is what you see here. That's a tunnel, like a bridge, right? Or like a channel. Mm-hmm. All right. So that's gap junction. So it's the cells are connected together, but there's a gap for molecules to pass through them. Make sense? Yes. So connexin makes connexons. Now, they allow for movement of small molecules. I've discussed that they allow transformation of nutrients and electrical signal between some cells. They are found in cells or tissues that spread action potentials. So they actually found, when I say tissue that forms action potential, you should think of neurons, your nerve tissues that does nerve coordination, right? Then you should think of your cardiac muscles, right? So those are tissues where they are found. They are found in those regions. I'm answering Matt's question now. Now let's go. Desmosomes, they involve cell adhesion molecule, which we call CAM, CAM, cell adhesion molecules. So you may see CAM in my exam and not cell adhesion molecule. You may see cell adhesion molecule is still the same. Now they are attached to intermediate filament of cell cytoskeleton. They function to bind cells together. And look at what is important. They are found in areas where stress is predominant. Stress is predominant. Stress. ST, stress.
No, I understand stress, but you said predominant?
Predominant. Predominant. Where stress is common.
Oh, okay.
Stressed area. Areas that are exposed.
Understand the wording, okay.
Yeah, I get areas that are exposed to stress. And so think about it before looking at the board. Which part of your body is or are mostly exposed to stress?
Like your joints?
Looking at me now, which part of the body looks more exposed?
Your ankles. Keeping you up.
I want to give you a punch. Think about your skin.
Skin, okay.
All right? Because your skin is actually the most exposed part of your body. I like the way you think, Matt, because the way you think prompts us to talk more on things, and so I like it.
Okay, so those are your spot welds are more on the outside of your body, like your skin,
Exactly.
keeping you together. So
Your skin, there's a lot of stress that is impacting your skin because your skin is the one outside more. It's protecting the whole body. So you have desmosome there. It's epidermis. You have it also in the intestine. Intestines also have intestines. They are also more stressed, right? Digestion, all of that happens there, right? So it's stress. Work is going on there always. Then obviously your cardiac muscles are always working too, right? They are also stress area. So those are the places you see desmosomes.
Okay.
Are we good? Can we continue?
Good. Do you have those in your bones or no?
Desmosome also could be. So when we say stressed, we are talking about where activities are going on. Now, when you look at your cardiac muscles, you know it is working, right? It is working. Your bone bears stress. It bears body weight.
Yeah.
But it's different from the fact that your cardiac muscle is working all time.
Okay. So
Cardiac is the chest, is the heart.
Okay.
So it's working every time.
So they're not like in your ligaments and your bones?
Yeah,
and all
so
that?
it's really working. Then when you look at your skin, so we are talking about areas that are exposed to stress, like something is going on every time.
Okay.
All right. Okay, I've talked about this. Now, types of tissues. That's what I have here, right? Semen. Right? Now, your epithelial tissues is like a broadsheet. S-H-E-E-T, right? It's like a sheath. Your epithelial tissue is like a sheath, and it you can see it covers. Okay, let me get back to this. I will go there. It covers the body. It lines body cavity, and it also forms glands. So your epithelial tissues. Don't let me talk about it now. Let me get there. So 4 of them, semen. You have the connective tissues. From the word connective, what comes to you when you hear connective? It connects. So it binds cells. It binds. It connects. That's the major thing. I will be linking it when I get there, when I talk more about it. And from the word connect, you can look at it and look at support, right? Does it still connect each other? So connecting, then you can think of support. Protection, because it's connected, it has strength, it's supporting, it's protecting. Then it's able to it has immune function because of the fact that it's protecting. And I'll talk about the other part. Now, muscles, I'll be talking about that. Body movement, its generation, movement of material. Then nervous. Who can remember what I have mentioned about nervous neurons here today? Nervous tissues? When I was talking about the connections.
Today?
Who can remember?
Wait, what was your question?
Who can remember what I've mentioned about neuron or nervous tissues or nervous system, neurons? Thank you. I mentioned something about the connections. Say one more thing about it. Yes, those are areas that have asking potentials. Which kind of cell junction is there?
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to hear, gap junctions. Right? Does it make sense now? So I need you to be connecting stuff as we are going. Okay? Let's go. All right. So these are epithelial tissues. You see them, they line your GI tract. And so epithelial tissue cover the outward body, right? So your skin, epithelial tissue, right? Then another thing they also do is they also line your organs. They have the covering on your organs. They are epithelial tissues. All right. So all of those time we're talking about membranes on the serous, on the viscera. Did you remember that we say serous membrane? Did you remember? They are epithelial tissues. So epithelial tissues, that's what does the outer covering, which is the skin, and also they also covers organs. So all the membranes on the organs, they are mostly epithelial tissues. Major thing about them, though I'll still be talking about them, you can see how the cell appear, right? So it looks like there are a lot of cells here, right? Do you get what I'm saying? Now, if you look at it, look like there is a lot of cells there. So it's densely populated with cells, and the cells are well connected together. They don't have vascular system, but they have nerves. But I'll still be talking about it when we get there. These are nerve tissues. From the nerve tissues, you know that they are nervous system, right? And what's your nervous system? The brain and the spinal cord, right? So that's where you also expect to see them. You expect to see them on the brain, in the brain. So this is connecting little few things help you from stressing yourself. So when you hear nervous tissues, think about nervous system. And when you think of nervous system, what are the major two parts on the nervous system? Is the brain and spinal cord. So that means those are the tissues that make up the brain and the spinal cord. So brain, spinal cord, and the nerves, right? Then come to muscle tissues. We have three types of muscles. First, muscle tissues are your muscles. Think about that. Muscular system, right? Those are the muscles that make up, those are the tissues that make up your muscular system. And so we have the cardiac, which is that of the heart. We have the smooth, which is part of the ones in your urinary bladder, part of the ones in your blood vessels, parts of the ones in your eye, everywhere that are smooth, that have smooth muscles, those are smooth. Then you have the skeletal. Skeletal, obviously, bones. I was expecting Matt to say that because he mentioned bone the other time. So bones, those are skeletal muscles, right? So by the time you pick it bit by bit like that, it won't look big. You just break it down. If you can get the keyword, you can break it down. Then the connective tissues. From the word connect, I already told you connective is connecting, right? So what do you have there? You have fat and other soft padding tissues. You have the bone, you have the tendon. They are the connecting areas. So does that make sense? Bones and tendon, they are connecting, right?
You know they make gummy bears out of tendons?
Thank you.
I used to be a vegetarian, and so I would never eat gummy bears or gummy worms because it was pig tendons. Yeah.
All right. Now, so let's go. I've talked a lot about all of these now. So when I get to the things I've talked about, I'll just be going, okay? But if you have questions, please stop me and I will gladly respond. It's at 9. Okay, we are on a good pace. What time is it?
6:31.
6:31? Very good. Mr. A is going well. Now, I already told you that epithelial tissues, you see them in two major divisions. The first place you see them is the point where they are covering. And where they are covering, what's the first example that comes to you? Your skin. Another way you can see them is, now, where they are covering, they are covering. So, like, look at it. When they are covering, they cover the body surface. When they line internal organs also, they are also covering. So they can cover or they can line. Does that make sense? So think about it. They are covering and lining.
What's the difference between a cover and a lining?
I'll explain. Lining means that you can see them in the, so when Now, endometrial walls. The uterus, the line, all of that, they are lining all of those organs. So when they line the inside, it's still epithelial tissues. When they are covering, it's still epithelial tissues. Does that make sense?
The lining would be the inside covering. Be
Thank you.
Okay.
And now think about it. Like with what Matt is bringing out for us, even though I'm not there yet, the fact they are lining something, does that mean that also means that they help with secretions? Because
Secretions?
yeah, because they are going to release some secretions, right?
Yeah.
So that's because the organ they are covering, they help to release some secretions into. So I'm just bringing that out so that you can be looking at how to connect stuff. Now, so you see them when they are covering, we call them covering epithelium. So the lining or inside or outside, we still call it covering. Then the other type, which is what I was almost touching already, is where they are secreting something, right? And that is glandular epithelium. The glands are the structures that secrete materials or do secretions in the body. So you can have epithelial tissues at those two points. So when you talk about sweat gland, sweat gland, sebaceous glands, all of that, those glands are formed by epithelial tissues. Make sense? Yeah. Sometimes, for some of you, it may not connect too well now, but when you study again, listen to this video again, it will make sense to you more. Now, I told you already that they are sheet of cells, right? They are sheet of cells that are together and they are tightly packed. Did you remember?
Yeah.
All right. They don't have blood vessels. They are supplied by blood vessels by their underlying blood vessels below them. They don't have blood vessels by themselves. It's just like this. You don't cook, but you eat. You don't cook. You don't have stove in your house. You don't cook. You don't have pots, but you get food from your cousins or from your brother or your neighbor.
Okay.
So they don't have blood vessels. Bless you. They don't have blood vessels to get blood supply, and you know that it is through blood vessels that nutrients, cells also get nutrients, right? Oxygen. So they don't have all of that. They don't have the blood vessels, but they get supply from neighboring blood vessels. Make sense? And but they have nerves. They have nerves for themselves, but they don't have blood vessels. They have capacity to renew, so they have high rates of cell division. High rate of cell division means that they can replicate themselves, they can wear out. And think about it, for menstrual cycle for women, every month the wall of the endometrial is washed away, right? And it will be still be replaced. Think about your skin too. Your skin is worn out, it will still be replaced constantly, right? So that is cell division. And mitosis is what does that. Mitosis, right? You remember I've always said, I told you sometimes ago, Rick, you still remember that anything that relates with growth in your body, this is mitosis, right? And what's their function? From the fact that they are covering your body, what are they doing? Protection. Your skin protects your body, right? Your skin protects you. The fact that they are lining, they are found in some organs where they form glands, they secrete, right? They also help with filtration and they help with absorption. The fact that they are also, they have those covering and they are able to absorb, and they also help with excretion. So don't forget that. If I want to come up with an acronym now, I'll use an acronym. I'm just thinking of something now. Either way that is convenient for you. Oh, okay. These look more sensible. FIPS. There's a way acronyms help you to remember things. Can I clean this? Acronyms help you to remember things in some very funny way. OAPS. Is this supposed to be for cleaning?
Yeah, why not?
So I'll just write, if I'm writing, I'll just write for the function of epithelial, I'll write FIPS. Filtration, excretion, absorption, protection, secretion. Makes sense a little, right? All right. Oh, so it's a little, not a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go. Now, epithelial tissues, they have apical surface. When you say apical, it's apex. And apex means top, right? Good. Now, they have apical surface. And obviously, the apical surface is this. And it's facing the inside. The inside is usually a space. Now, think about it. What I'm saying is just simply like this. Think about that this is an organ. And the organ has epithelial lining inside, lining it, right? Think about it that way. There's a lining inside the organ, and the organ has a hole inside. The name of that hole is called lumen. The name of the hole inside an organ is called, the organ is called lumen. Oh. Does that make sense? So the lumen is the interior space of internal organs or ducts. Does that make sense? So there's epithelial tissues lining the organs here. And so this space here, this is what we call the apical space of the epithelial tissue, because that is the space that is open to the lumen. Does that make sense? So if this is the epithelial tissues now, the top part is the apical surface. So this part here, look at my cursor. This part here is the apical surface. Make sense? Think about it that after this place, so I have to come here now. Think about that after this place is the lumen. Do you get what I'm saying? Think about that the space up here now is the lumen. We just section out, as though we just section out a part of the epithelial tissues. And I'm showing you that this here is the lumen, but inside, this here is the apical surface. Apical surface facing the lumen, right? Good. Now, this part here will be what? The basal surface. Because this will be the base, right? If this is the apex. Do you get? Good. You can get it now, right? Good. So this is the apex, this is the base. So the basal surface is going to be here. And this is the apical surface. All right? So the apical surface, cells have, the epithelial tissues, they have apical surface. And I already told you what the apical surface is. And then they also have the basal surface. And what does the basal surface look like? That's what is attached to the basal membrane. Makes sense? So you can invert it anyhow. This that I have here, I can invert it like this and show you that this is the basal membrane. Right? And show you that this is the basal membrane. Then here I have the epithelial tissues. Then I'm saying this part here is the basal surface of the epithelial tissue, which is attached to the basal membrane, right? So let's say I just take a part of this, I cut it out, and I'm analyzing it like this. Then epithelial tissue is all here. The space in between here is going to be what? The lumen, right? Good. And this upper part of the membrane is going to be what? Thank you. Apical surface. Apical or apical is apex. A-P-E-X. So A-P-I-C-A-L. So apical surface. That's it there. Make sense? Make sure it's not distracting you. Does that make sense to you? So when I say the apical surface open to the lumen, to the space, it makes sense now, right? Then the basal surface is attached to the basement membrane. Does it? Can you relate now? You have a question? Can you see? Now I just want you to see this. Some people are straining to get it there. Is it okay? Can I continue? If you want to, if I were you, I would just also try to be making a drawing also the way I'm doing it. And you will see the difference it makes. When you are able to make, even though the drawing does not look neat, it doesn't look beautiful, but it's picture what we are studying. So if you are able to also do the same, you are making it real to yourself. Because the whole thing we are trying to do is this what we are studying is real. It's not, it's different from when they are just saying something is happening. No, we are looking at the cells. We are looking at tissues, what is inside your system. So if you can try to picture it, it makes it very good to study. Let's go. Yeah, I think I'll have to go. So this is the basolateral surface. This is the basement membrane, right? And that's the apical. So this side will be the basal surface. That's the apical surface. This will be the basal surface here. Don't let me talk about that. Now, another thing that is interesting is this. Let's talk about the layers of epithelial tissues. Epithelial tissue layers. How epithelial tissues are classified. I wish there's a remote that clean up these things after using it, and so that I can save time. Now, classification of epithelial tissues. Epithelial tissues can be classified on two bases. The first is based on layers. So you can classification based on layers. The number one is that you can have simple. Now, simple simply means that it is simple layer or simple epithelium. I'm going to write simple epithelium. Simple epithelium. Don't forget we are on epithelium tissue now, right? Epithelial tissues. We have 4 types of tissues. Cement, right? Connective, muscle, epithelial, and nervous. Cement, right? Now we are looking at epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue is the major one. It's a lot, but others are not as much. Epithelial and connective tissues are the major. Now, simple epithelial tissues, it simply means it's a single or one layer. So anytime you see simple something epithelium, it means it has one layer. Another is you could see stratified. Stratified epithelium. From the word stratified. Now, if you look at, can somebody quickly look at the word stratum? Stratum. What does stratum mean? It's an English word. What does stratum mean? You can look at it on Google. Just look it up and let me know. What does stratum mean? Stratum.
Extractum? Extractum, like take out.
The outer layer of the skin.
No, look at this.
A series of layers of. Oh no, wait, that's the wrong one.
That doesn't
How
look
do you
wrong.
spell that?
Layer. And layer.
The horny out layer of the skin.
All right. Stratum means layers.
The horny out layer. That's what Google said.
All right. What did your Google say? No, I thought, Tyra, did you tell me something? Somebody said something there.
The outermost layer of the epidermis.
All right. So, stratum, that's a type of epidermis when we begin to talk about that. But generally, from the English word, stratum means layer. Right? Stratum means layer. Yeah, but this it's part of epidermis. When we talk about it, you will get it more too. So what you saw is right. Okay? But if you just look at stratum meaning, English word, it means layer. So it is the word stratum, that's where we got stratified from. Alright? So stratified means it has more than one layer. So it's two or more layers. Two or more layers. That's stratum. So stratified epithelium. So now, when I have an epithelium that is one layer, then the name is single something epithelium. When I have another one that is more than one layer, either it is two or three, then it becomes stratified something epithelium. Now the third one that we have is called pseudo stratified. What does that mean? English word. Pseudo and stratified. What does it mean?
Pseudo.
What's the meaning of pseudo? False. So what does that imply? Thank you. False layered. I will call false layered. False layered means that it has a layered appearance, but it is not layered. Does that make sense? It has an appearance of a stratified epithelium, but it's actually a single layer.
Okay, could you give an example? Where would that be at in your body?
I will still be discussing it. I'm just giving a foundation for now. Yeah, thank you. I know you are trying to connect stuff, but I will be talking about all of that. I want to build a foundation. I'm here to talk about the types of epithelium. I'm just telling you how they do the classification. All right, so when I get to that point, we'll be talking about it. Now, so it has an appearance of layers, but it's just one layer. Now, we also have another classification that is based on what? On the cell shape. Thank you. Now, don't be curious to think about where it is yet. We are just looking at how they are classified. This is classification. Is CL. This? It's the same in classification.
Oh, okay.
I wrote my hairs like that. Just to be complicated the way doctors are complicated too sometimes. You know, sometimes doctors and pharmacists just want to confuse us. They will write it in a way that you can't read it. It's even better here. Come and see them in my country. They will write it, you will be like you are not educated because you won't be able to read anything.
Even worse over there?
It's the way doctors write over there is worse than the way doctors write here. Yeah, doctors there are still nicer. All right. Because doctors there too, it took them a lot to have their MBBS. It's easier to get here. All right. Maybe I'm kidding. Now, these are the ones that we classify based on shape. And based on shape can be squamous. Squamous simply means it appears flat. Now the other one is cuboidal. From the word cuboidal, you can see the word cube there, right?
Yeah.
It looks like a cube. Then number 3 is columnar. From the word columnar, what do you see? Column. Then if I want to just make it simple again, I'll say pole. Right? When you say column or pillar, looks like a column. Then the fourth one is transitional. Transitional means that they are able to change shape. And usually they change shape from either cuboidal to a squamous one. And that happens with your urinary bladder. When the urinary bladder is normally not, if it's not contracted, if it's not filled up with urine. Matt, I expect you to look at me now. Your urinary bladder, when it's empty, it has the cuboidal shape. But when it is full, what's going to happen? It's going to stretch. So when it stretches, it won't maintain the cuboidal shape again. It will look flat. Does that make sense? So something that looks fat before, but by the time you stretch it, it looks flat. All right, so let's go. Now we want to go to the naming. Now, when we want to name now listen to this before I even continue, I show you anything. When I'm going to name now, I will start with the simplest one. Then the simplest one is going to be simple squamous epithelium. So that's when you begin to ask me where it's going to be located, because we just want to talk about their names, okay? This is just to tell you how they are named. But I need you to be on this page before we can go to the next page. Is everybody good?
Yeah.
Good. Now, these are actually epithelium. There's no epithelium that is just simple epithelium by itself. But we have epithelium that is simple squamous. Now, if it is simple squamous epithelium, what does that mean? How many layers does it have? What is the shape of the cell? Flat. So it's a flat, it's a one layer, a single flat epithelium. Make sense? Good. Now, what does it look like? This is how it looks like. You can see the nucleus, right? So the nucleus is centrally located. The nucleus is at the middle of the cell. This is a cell. This is another cell. This is another cell. And you can see the nucleus at the center. So we say the nucleus is centrally located. Now, where do you expect to see this kind of epithelium? I'm going to look at the functions. Then I will look at where do you expect to find them. What do? They perform absorptions and secretions. So they secrete. And they also control vessel permeability. Permeability means opening to allow things to enter or go out, right? Then they reduce friction. So where do you expect to see epithelium that have those features? Obviously, since we have said it helps with vessel permeability, you expect that they will be around the blood vessels. Does that make sense? If they reduce friction, you expect that they will be around the blood vessels. So they are part of the tissues that line the blood vessels. So you see them lining the blood vessels. So they're lining the heart as well. You see them lining ventral body cavities. What are ventral body cavities? When we say ventral body cavities, very good. So you see them lining ventral body cavities. And that means you see them lining the heart, right? Right? Then the stomach, right? Good. So that is what you have here. So you see them lining portions of the kidney tubules, the lungs. All right. So that's a way to connect anything we are studying. When you see the name, break them down based on this, then continue your analysis. Let's go to the next one. The next one is simple cuboidal. That means it has how many layers? Cuboidal means that the shape is? All right, good. Now it has a single layer of cube-shaped cell. Simple. So if I ask you, if I tune all of these together, you should be able to tell me what is what. Major thing I also would need you to know is to be able to tell me their location. Now let's look at their function. The father is cuboidal, means that it does protection. Now anytime you see squamous cell, there's key thing. it is doing secretion. Anytime you see squamous cell, they are usually, now look at squamous cells. You can see they are part of the lungs, cornea, blood vessels, kidney tubules, endothelial lining of the lining of the heart. They are secreting. Anywhere you see them, you see that it has to do with secretion. Anywhere you see anything squamous cell, it has to do with secretion. And they are also located in areas where they are washed away, and because they can quickly replicate it themselves. So take note of that. Anywhere that you have secretions, most likely it is first going to be squamous cells there. Now, for these two cuboidal cells, you can see they also do secretion, they also do absorption, right? And if they do absorption, who can tell me where you can think they will be by that function?
Intestines.
Okay.
Small intestines.
I thought I would hear kidney first.
Okay.
Yeah, if they do absorption, then kidney, right? So then they also protect. And so you will see them in glands, you will see them in ducts, portions of the kidney tube, portions of the kidney tubules as well. You see them in thyroid gland as well. And majorly, they are cuboidal cells. They are cuboidal cells. You can see the way they appear. They are not like flat cells. They are cuboidal cells. All right. The other one, we are still looking at simple now. You can see, right? Then we have simple columnar. Columnar, usually they are like column, right? So they are longer, right? So anytime you see cells that look longer, and they will always have their nucleus closer to the base. Their nucleus are usually closer to the base than to the apex. So this will be the apical membrane, right? The apical layer, right? Then this is the basement membrane. So their nucleus are usually closer to the basement membrane than to the apical membrane. And what do? They also protect because of their shape. Do you see epithelial tissue protect? Do you see squamous protecting? Squamous does not protect because they are fragile. They are washed away easily. So they don't protect. So two of them protect, like protection. Squamous, cuboidal and columnar, because of their shape, right? They are able to protect. Okay. So they are able to protect, they secrete, and they also absorb. So all you just need to take note is, now, cuboidal does protection, but it's limited protection. It is columnar that does the major protection. Do you get? Columnar, and for the shape, you can tell too, right? And think about it, the way I joke with it sometimes it is. Now, columnar usually have their nucleus as the base. So their nucleus is protected. So they can protect with the other part of the cytoplasm, and nothing will happen to the cell because the nucleus is actually at the base. Make sense? Good. All right, so you see them in the lining of the stomach, you see them in the intestine, gallbladder, you see them in the uterine, you see them in the collecting ducts of kidneys. So majorly, I need you to know their description, where they are located, and their function. All right, now pseudostratified columnar epithelium. The name looks big, but you already know what is pseudostratified. False layered, meaning that it's just a layer, but it looks as though it has more than one layer. And look at it. This is what we mean by false layered. If you look at these tissues very well, I know it may not be as clear here now, but if you look at it on your computer, you will see that each of these cells is touching the basement membrane. There's none of them that does not have attachment to the basement membrane. Do you take note? All of them. If you look at each of the cells, can you see this one? Can you see the root here? Did you notice that? Even this one that looks long, can you see the root? This is it here. This is the root here. Now, this one, can you see the root here? this one, can you see the roof here? You may not be able to see it too well here, but if you look at it on your computer, if you have your computer, or if your neighbor have a computer, you can just look at what I'm trying to show you. So if you look at this one, all of them is touching the basement membrane. So if all of them is touching the basement membrane, that means it's a layer. Now look at the one that is layer. Can you see this? Are these cells touching the basement membrane? Are these ones touching the basement membrane? No. So these are layer. But this guy looks as though it is layer. But as much as every cell is touching the basement membrane, then it's one layer. So that's why we say that is pseudo appearance that it is layer. But once every cell is touching the basement membrane, then it is not layer. It's just like this. If we say this building is about 3 floors, right? We have third floors here. But if every floor is touching the basement membrane, then it's just tall. Is it going to be third floor again? No. No. It's just like if the whole building is, now think about it, if the whole building is this tall, but there are some rooms that is this tall, but we are still on the basement membrane, then is it going to be third floor? It's still first floor. So that's the way those cells appear. Now, not all cells reach the lumen. Now, so look at it. It's not all cells that reach the apical surface, the lumen. You can see this cell. So I have to be doing this so that when you are looking at the lecture, you can see this cell. Oh, sorry. Now you can see this small cell here. It's touching the basement membrane, but it's not touching the apical membrane, right? Right? You are not seeing them on the surface, right? Good. So those are a way that they just camouflage for us as though they are stratified, but they are actually one layer. All right, then they have different position of their nucleus. It's not unlike the columnar cells when we already know that all the cells have their nucleus close to the base, right? For squamous cell, you already know that all the cells have their nucleus at the center, right? But these ones, some cells will have their nucleus at the center, some cells will have their nucleus scattered, all of that, all around. Now let's go. Then the function, they also protect, and obviously they should protect because of their structure. Anytime you see columnar protects, right? So can you connect it anytime? So anytime you see this, even though they put a lot of structures there, once it's columnar, what's the first function that comes to your mind? Protection. Cuboidal protects, but it does limited protection. Columnar protects more, right? Good. Then it also secretes, it moves mucus with cilia because of the cilia that is present on it. All right, let's go. Now, this is stratified. Stratified means that it has more than one layer. Now, there's key thing that helps in the naming. Now, everybody look at the screen. There's something key about the naming for stratified. When we say stratified squamous, it doesn't mean that the whole of the cell are made up of squamous cell. It means that the cell at the apical surface or the cells at the top closer to the lumen are made up of squamous cell. So the cells here is what determines the name, not the cell here. Does that make sense? The cells at the top is what determines the name, not the cell at the base. Make sense?
Yeah.
I'm really sorry. I have to respond to this call. I'm sorry. Hello, ma. Sorry, ma. More pass. I just said like pay Ayo if it's about church. Ayo is our here. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry about that. I just need to.
That last thing you said.
Now, this is stratified squamous epithelium, right? Stratified means that it has more than one layer, right? Squamous means that they are flat cells, right? Now, when you come here, is this cell flat cell? Is this cell flat cell? Yes. So I'm saying that what determines the name of all the stratified cells are the cells on the top. All the cells are the apical layer. Apical layer is the apex. You remember? The part that is closer to the lumen. Did you remember my diagram? So the cell that is on the surface is what determines the name. So when we say stratified squamous, it doesn't mean that it may not have some columnar cell or some cuboidal cell at the base. Make sense?
So they're flat on the top, that means they're stratified squamous, right?
If it is flat at the top, first, if it has many layers, it is stratified. Then if the cells at the top are flat, then it is stratified squamous. If the cells at the top are cuboidal, then it is stratified cuboidal. Make sense? Good. Now, deeper layer may appear cuboidal. Can you see? The cells at the basal membrane can appear cuboidal or columnar. They undergo mitosis, meaning that they are able to replace. Now, these cells are going to be stem cells because remember the secret I told you. Anytime you see squamous cells, what are they doing? They are secreting something, right? Thank you. And I told you that they can be washed away easily, right? That's why they are not protecting, because something that can be washed away itself, they don't have any protection, right? Right? They don't have insurance.
I don't understand when you say wash away.
Washed away means that they can
washing
be
your skin away.
washed away means they can be torn, they can be lost. They can degenerate, and another set will come up.
So they die and new ones come often.
That's it.
They keep recycling.
That's
Okay,
it.
Okay.
So they can be replaced, right?
Okay.
They die. They get eroded. Does that make sense?
Yes.
They get eroded, and that's the secret. Anything you want to think about that, remember menstrual cycle. How the membrane, the epithelial lining, the lining of the uterus of is endometrial walls is washed away, right? Then you don't want to think about it. I'm sorry. I know you don't want to. You don't want it to come. It's okay, but if you think about it, you will always remember squamous cells, right? You always remember that they do secretion. You always remember that they don't last long, right? They washed away and they will be replaced, and that is mitosis. Now, so think about what I'm telling you now. These cells are here as stem cells. Now, when you say stem cells in the body, they are cells that are reservative. What other word can I use? Stem cells, they are cells, raw material cells that are able to produce new cells. Does that make sense? When you say stem cells, don't think about science, technology, and engineering when I say stems. Now, stem cells, they are cells that they are. Do you have a word you want to use?
Well, I had a question. Would stem cells be considered other types of cells, or is it just stem cells?
Stem cells are not specialized cells. So when you think of stem cells now, they are just cells that exist as raw material. They can differentiate to form any cells that is needed. So they are like raw materials. They are here at the basement membrane. They are not differentiated. So by the time these ones are worn out, they are also going to produce another ones. Do you get? Mm-hmm. So when these guys are worn out, they will produce another one. They will replace it. When these guys are worn out, they will replace it. And that's why they are undergoing mitosis, because they are replacing the lost cells. Does that make sense? Because think about it. You don't want me to mention menstrual cycle, but I'll still mention it. I'm sorry. Now, Daisy, you have the period this month, right? Some cells are lost. Then you are still going to have the same period next month. Another cell will be lost. So what is happening there is high level of mitosis, right? Because those cells are reproduced every time another is lost. It's reproduced every time one is lost, right? Good. Thank you. That's just a very perfect example to use when I'm talking about that, because you remember secretion, you remember that the cells does not last, that they are replaced so fast, right? Mitosis, you remember that. Good. So all of, yeah, so we can go, right? Now location, you see them on the surface of the skin. Your skin is worn out every time. You take shower, you scratch, cells are gone. You remember, okay, sometimes when you want to do some experiments in the lab and you have to do anything with cell, they ask you to take a toothpick and just do like you're scratching inside of your cheek, right? Now, you are not going to feel any pain as though something, you had a cut. But just putting the toothpick there and scratching, you are going to bring something out and it will be on the slide. Then you perform an experiment with that. So that tells you that cells are washed out easily, right? That you don't know. Scratch, you wash, you take a shower, cells are washed out and they are replaced also. Like that. So you see them on the surface of the skin, lining of the mouth, just like what I just talked about now, right? Then you see them in your throat, esophagus, rectum, anus, vagina. They provide physical protection against abrasion, your skin, right? And against pathogens and chemical attack. Let's go. Don't forget the key thing. The name of the cell on the apical surface is what determines the type of the cell for stratified, right?
You said the what? Determines what?
What is this cell? Read this out for me.
Stratified.
Squamous epithelium.
Yeah.
Why is this squamous? Because the cells here are squamous cells.
Yes.
Let's go. Now, stratified cuboidal. What does that mean? It means that the cells at the apical surface. Now, where's the apical surface here? You know this is the lumen, right? You know this is going to be the apical surface, right? Yeah. These are the cells closer to the lumen. The cells that are closer to the lumen are the apical surface, are the cells at the apical surface, right? This will be the one at the basement membrane, right? Good. So these cells, they are not squamous. They are cuboidal. You can see the shape, right? So these cells are stratified cuboidal cells. And the major thing you should take note now are the locations. You find them in the lining of dots. They are rare cells. And you know that cuboidal cells have limited protection, right? And they do secretion and absorption as well. Let's go. I have to, what time is it? I mean,
going through all these slides today?
no, I told you I'm not going to do that. What time is it? I need a time. Like
19:15.
7?
19:15.
7:15. All right. Let me see where I am. So let me cover some more, then I will close. Now, stratified columnar. From the word columnar, you know that they are going to be protecting, right? Stratified means that they have more than one layer. And you can see, are these cells columnar? These cells, what's the shape? What's the shape? These are cuboidal cells. But why are they called columnar cells? Thank you. So think about it. This is the lumen. These are the cells on the apical surface. They are cuboidal cell. That is why it is called stratified cuboidal cell. It has more than one layer, but the other layers at the basement membrane are not columnar cells, right? But it is columnar cells because of the location of columnar cells here. So the cells at the apical surface determines the name of the cell with stratum. Make sense? Good. Now, small areas of the pharynx have those cells. Epiglottis have those cells. Your anus have those cells. Mammary gland have those cells. And obviously, you can think about mammary gland to have those cells because of the shape, right? Yeah, so because, and if you think about it, it does, you see it also at the salivary gland. It does that, it's there too, and in the urethra. The major function it does is to protect. Let's go. Now you have stratified transitional cells. This is what I told you about the bladder, and let me show you clearly now. This is the bladder when it is relaxed. Transitional means that they change shape. They can transition from one shape to another. You know when you say transition to glory, right? Transition, I'm in transit, right? When you say I'm in transit, oh, I have this here and I forgot to have it since. Now, when you say that transition, we are in transition, what does it mean?
Change.
You are moving, right? You are going to change. You are moving from one location to another. So these cells, they are able to change. They have a particular shape, but they can change to another shape. So they are transitional. And so when your bladder is relaxed, when it does not have, is empty, this is the shape it has. It has the columnar cells. It has the columnar cells. You see the cells appear rounded as though it's columnar, right? But by the time it's full, what's going to happen? Is stretch. And so when it stretch, it will lose its columnar shape. So it will look as though it is now
Bigger.
squamous. No. We are not looking at the bladder itself. We are looking at the cell lining the bladder. So a bladder that looks full, that is not that is empty, it will look like this. But think about this if I stretch this out. So think about this is the bladder, right? The cell appear like this when it's just relaxed, it's empty. But if I stretch it, by the time it's full, if it's full, it's going to stretch, right, to accommodate the urine, right? So by the time it's stretching, it will now appear flat. Can you picture what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just like you have something that looks like this before, then you stretch it out. It will look, the top will now look flat, right?
Yes.
Good. That's what is going to happen. So it will look like flat cells when it's full. That is transitional epithelium. Then it's obviously stratified. Can we continue? All right. And don't forget, it is the apical cells also that determines that, right? The apical cell will have rounded appearance before, but then they can transition into squamous appearance when the tissue is stretched. All right. Glandular epithelium. Glandular epithelium can be glandular and it can be exocrine or endocrine. Now think about it, simple. Exocrine, they secrete their product into a duct, then they empty. Did you remember I told you anytime you see exo, what should you remember? Exit. So this is an exocrine gland. They secrete their product into a duct. They need a duct to empty their secretion into the surface. And anytime you see lumen, you already know that's a space inside the organ, right? Good. Now, example of this is you see exocrine gland in salivary gland. There is a salivary duct that helps to bring the secretion to your mouth. Then you have it in sebaceous and pseudoverus, which is a sweat gland. Sweat gland also have sweat ducts that bring the secretion out, right? That brings sweat out. Now you have another kind of endocrine. Endocrine gland, they secrete their product into the blood. Does that make sense? They just put it into the blood. But this guy, they exit. Can you picture it in that same regard? They secrete their product and empty it through a duct into the body surface. So it exits the body. But this guy just put it in the blood system and let it circulate. Does that make sense? Thank you. Now, an example of that is the pituitary gland, the thyroid gland, and the exocrine and the adrenal gland. I'm trying to be fast now, but let me calm down. Now, pancreas is an organ that looks like hypocritical. It has both exocrine and endocrine gland. You don't want to forget this guy. It's very nice on my exam. Pancreas has both endocrine and exocrine gland. The exocrine gland is the major one, and it's formed by acinal cell. Acinal cell. You will see this too. You may see this too. Acinal cells or acinal cells. Then the endocrine gland is formed by islet.
Acinar cells is what's in there.
Yes, that's why I'm writing it close to them. Langerhans. So the exocrine gland are formed. The acinal cells are the one that form the exocrine part of pancreas, and the islet of Langerhans are the one that form the endocrine part of pancreas.
Is that ISLEC?
ISLET of Langerhans. Can I continue? Thank you. All right, so I'll just rush some few things because I've done a good basis. And in a way, with what I've taught, if you feel you understand at least 50% of what I've explained, give me your hands up. At least you understand 50% of what I've explained.
Yeah.
Oh, so I've done a good job. So go and learn the other 50% when you review, okay? But I know that some of you have understood 70, 80, 90, and maybe I get 100 too.
Right here.
All right.
100.
That's good. Now, when I say 100, I mean that you've understood like almost everything I've explained, right? So thank you. Now, structural classification of exocrine gland. Exocrine gland can be unicellular organs, can be unicellular gland, meaning that they just have one type of cell. Now we are just looking at the type of cell. If they have just one type of cell, then they are unicellular exocrine gland. Those are globular cells. Then they can be multicellular, meaning that they have more than one type of cell that make them up. E.g., you have the salivary gland, you have the sebaceous, you have the pseudoferous gland. Now, I'll just rush through this. Simple gland, they are gland without branching dots, meaning that they are just simple. They don't have branch. Those are just simple. Compound gland, they have branching. Now, compound, sorry I didn't put this appropriately. Compound can be tubular, it can be acinar, it can be tubulo-acinar. So let's go, I'll show you. Now, these are simple glands. They are simple. They are simple tubular, simple coiled. You can see it's simple coiled. All of these, they are made up of just one type of cell, but they are still simple. Then simple alveolar, simple branched. Now we have compound. Let's go to compound. You have this PowerPoint on your slide, on your blackboard too. Then these are compound. They can be compound tubular, compound acinar, compound tubulo-acinar. It's simple. This is tubular. Tubular is just like a tube. You can see that it's the inside, the lumen is just straight. But the acinar, which is alveolar, the inside look like a sac. Does that make sense? The inside look like a pouch. Do you get? The inside for tubular is just straight. The lumen is just straight. You can see the lumen is straight, just straight down like a tube. But for alveolar or acinar, it looks like a cup, or a pouch. What other word can I use to explain this? What does the lumen look like?
Looks like
A clover. Spell the clover. Good. C-L-O-V-E-R. Who else have another word for it? I would say like a sack, like a pouch, like what else? Thank you. Now, just get the concept, right? Now, but there are some compound that have a combination of the two. It has the tube, which is just like a tube, straight down, like this. Then some of them also have the sac in between them. So that means this is tubule acinar. Acinar. What does this look like? Is it acinar or tube? Acinar. So you can see it has like acinar. So it has tube, acinar, 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 tube, tube, tube. A combination of both of them. So this is tubulo-acinar. So when you see this, you should be able to recognize it, right? Good. Now, functional classification. This is structural classification, looking at the gland. Now we want to look at functional classification, okay? The same thing, but we are looking at functional here, structural here. We want to look at functional classification here. All these glands that we have just looked at, and I told you that, example is intestinal here, example is sweat gland here. This is structural classification based on the way their structure appears. Now let's go and look at how they appear based on function. Functional classification, we only have 3 of them. We have the merocrine, apocrine, and holocrine. Now, holocrine is the simplest. And think about it. Holocrine, they make their secretion. And when they want to release their secretion, instead of just releasing their secretion and make another secretion later, they will burst, the whole cell will burst with the secretion. So the way to release the secretion is for the whole cell to burst, to rupture. Does that make sense? It's just like this. Sometimes you buy some ice cream from Chick-fil-A that have this, what's the name of this cone? You know this cone that have, what's it? Waffle cone, right? You have the one that have the waffle cone. Then sometimes I have 2 kids, sometimes we just buy one different ones for each of them, or we get the waffle cone for them, then we get ours in the cup. So the person that have the waffle cone, if they are going to eat their ice cream, the whole waffle cone, they don't have a cup afterwards, right? The whole waffle cone is gone. That is holocrine. Say you are eating the whole of it, holocrine. And so I just play with it as though you are eating the whole of it, W-H-O-L-E. I'm talking about holocrine, right? You are eating the whole of the thing. The secretion, the cell burst, rupture to release the secretion. The waffle cone is going to burst, right? You are going to, in fact, even if you don't heat the waffle cone, by the time you finish licking the ice cream, the whole thing is melted already, right? Good. So my little baby doesn't heat it. Now, but it will rupture anyway, right? Can you put another ice cream in it again? No, you can't go to Chick-fil-A and say you want to put another ice cream. It's already ruptured, right? By the time you finish that ice cream inside the waffle cone is useless, right? So that is holocrine. Make sense? And this are the cells. This is where you see them in sebaceous gland. The other one is, what time is it? I'm almost forgetting myself now.
7:30.
Okay, I'll stop at 7:40. Remind me. Now, apocrine is another one. And when you think about apocrine, just think about the mammary gland storing a lot of breast milk in the sac. So in my country, in my language, in my country, this means sac. Apo. It means sac. Alright? So think about it that I just have everything in the sac. Then the gland is going to accumulate their product at their apical cell, and then they will release it along with a portion of the cell. So they are going to release it along with a portion. This will release, the whole cell will be broken here. But this is just going to release part of it. So if you can remember P, just remember that part of the cell is going to go with it, right? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. That part of the cell, apo, part of the cell. Here is O, the whole of the cell. Here is P, apocrine. Part of the cell will go with it. And that happens in the mammary gland. Then the last one is merocrine. Merocrine is very smart. It doesn't lose its cell. It will just pack it in vesicle and release it. Exocytosis is to let it out, right? Is the way that the cell release substances out of the cell. And that is what salivary gland uses. The images are there to help too. Let me run now since I don't have much time. I already told Matt to let me out when he said 30 and I trust him. I'm sure that Matt cannot forget. If he forgets, I'll give him 10 points.
Get what?
If you forget that I asked you to stop me when you said 40.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah.
If you forget, I'll give you 10 points.
If I forget,
Yeah.
I need them 10 points. We're staying till 9, guys. I'm sorry.
Don't worry, I won't forget myself. I have 8 more minutes. Now, these are connective tissues. Do I want to talk about connective tissues now?
Nah, you probably don't have enough time, honestly. Probably should let us go early.
Connective tissue is a deal. But let's go. I'll start it. My timekeeper is not my friend. All right. Now, connective tissues. Now, from the word connective tissues, you know what they look like, right? They are connecting. Oh, I've stressed you enough. Are you tired? No. You're not tired.
She is tired.
All right. Who is tired here? Who is enjoying the class? All right. That's good. If you're enjoying the class, you're not tired. I'm just kidding. I know you should be tired. I will release in about 7 minutes, okay? Let's go. Now, All right. So example of connective tissues. Can we read it out, everybody? Blood, bone, cartilage, adipose tissues, subcutaneous tissue. Those are examples of connective tissues. Did you remember I told you the other time that epithelial tissues are avascular? Did you remember? Avascular means that they don't have blood vessels, right?
Yeah.
Connective tissue, good to hear that they have blood vessels. Are you excited about that? Oh, nothing exciting about it. Okay, either way, they have blood vessels, okay? All right? So I need you to be connecting like that. Remember that epithelial doesn't have blood vessels, right? Connective tissue have. These guys are good. Now, functions from the word connecting, from the word what they do, who they hurt, these guys, bone, you already know they are protecting, right? Bone, you already know they are supporting, right? Blood, you already know they are transportation, right? Blood, you already know they have immunity, right? Then energy storage, adipose tissue, right? Yeah. So characteristics, they are abundant in the body. Does that make sense? All right. Obviously, you have a lot of bone. I may not have a lot, but you have a lot. I have a lot too anyway. Now, they are not seen on the surface. Do you see your bone on the surface? So, things that are valuable, they are not on the surface. Sometimes, if you what?
If you break your bone,
If you break your bone.
it can come out. It can pop out.
Really? But the ideal way the body is structured, do you see your bone outside? All right. I don't wish to see any of your bones, okay? All right, typically they have blood vessels, right? Vascular means they have blood vessels. When you see A in front of it, it means they don't have, right? Avascular is opposite. In biology, now this is in biology, when you see A before an existing word, it means opposite. All right, so my name is Alonge, so it's the opposite of Longe. I'm just kidding. But you get the logic, right? All right. But does it make sense? So anytime you see A, so when you say vascular and avascular, what does that mean? Avascular does not have blood vessels, vascular have blood vessels. Epithelial cell does not have blood vessels, so they are avascular. Everybody that talked now have 5 points. And I heard your voice. Who said avascular again? I heard your voice. I know I heard about 3 voices. I heard your voice, I heard your voice. Who? She said it too. My class master? Alright, so 3 people. Who else said it there? 1 person said it here. So that's 4. Did you? I said, right? So remember to ask me for your point. Thank you. Right? Yeah. Good. So, vascular except for cartilage and dense connective tissue. You don't want to forget this because it's a good question. Right? Alright. Now they are supplied with nerve as well, except for cartilage. That's also good. Now they are composed of dispersed cells with a lot of intercellular space, extracellular matrices fill the intercellular spaces. Yeah, now you know I'm just rushing that. Alright, let's go. So just read through the images, learn them. Connective tissues. Now, this is simple. Very, very interesting to learn. Oh, my face is not on the camera again. Alright. Now, connective tissue cells, they are derived from mesenchymal cells. Oh, I didn't talk about that, but I don't really need to talk about it. There are something we call embryonic germ layers, and it's just simple. Embryonic germ layers, you have the endoderm, you have the ectoderm. This is all I need you to know anyway. So you have the mesoderm, and you have the ectoderm. I'm not saying anything about it to save time. Those 3. This is called embryonic. Please don't forget this. Embryonic germ layers. Those 3. So the connective tissues are made from the mesoderm. And that's what we mean by mesenchymal cells. Cells from the mesoderm, okay? That's why I went there. Now, immature form. When they are immature, you see the word blast. So you see chondroblast. And when you see con, anytime you see con, not con that you buy from Walmart, is C-H-O-N. Anytime you see con, what is it saying? Cartilage. anytime you see osteo is bone. So osteoblast means immature bones. Chondroblast means immature cartilage. Does that make sense? Good. Now,
Osteo is what? Bone?
osteo is bone. Yeah. Osteo is bone. Chondro, cartilage. Make sense? Now, I like the way you guys are learning. You don't know. You are my best student. I told my students yesterday too. Mature forms. When chondroblast is matured, they become chondrocytes. Make sense? Can I clean this? You can imagine if there's a remote that cleans this thing up, right? Because now I'm going to waste some of my 3 minutes to clean.
You got 1 minute now.
Really?
1 minute.
You want to lose your 5 points? You want to lose your 10 points? You are reminding me? You already reminded me anyway. Now, so chondrocytes. Now look at this real quick with my little time. Chondroblast is immature. When it matures, what's it going to become? Chondrocyte. Osteoblast is immature. When it matures, what's it going to be? Osteocyte. So this is a mature bone cell. These are cells. These are stem cells. Does that make sense? They are like, they are not the basal stem cell, but they are the cells that will produce this. So their cells are raw materials for this. Does that make sense? Good. Thank you. Is it 7:30? Is it 8:40?
Yep.
7:40? Oh, so you guys are really watching time for me. I thought you liked my class.
Well, you know, we're trying to be the best that we can, so we're keeping on.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to stop here.